as we near the end of the Gospel of Matthew, we see that Jesus is outside of Jerusalem having dinner in Bethany at a certain Simon the leper's house. And as he's at this man's house eating dinner with his disciples, a woman comes in and she anoints his head with an expensive perfume. And as we see, this is a sort of theme in the Gospels where someone anoints Jesus with an expensive perfume, whether it be his feet or his head. But nonetheless, the disciples see this and they become angry. They think, man, couldn't this have been sold? And we could have helped so many poor people with this ointment. But Jesus rebuked them and he ends up saying, why do you trouble this woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you always will have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever the gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her. One thing I think that this may apply to, possibly, is when we often can critique people in the same way. For instance, I think of people, they go walk by a cathedral and they see all these large, beautiful cathedrals, and they're like, couldn't these churches have just built simple and meager and practical buildings at much less of a cost and ended up giving way more to the poor, or burdening their parishioners much less with the expenditures on this building? You know, I've heard that critique multiple times in my life of cathedrals. But I read this passage and I see a woman who is lavishly trying to honor Jesus. And, you know, it isn't the most practical thing in the world, and the disciples critique her for that. But Jesus honors that. He respects her honoring of him in this way. And while this is specifically because of his, maybe in light of his death and his burial and honoring his body, I do wonder if we can honor the Lord's body, his church, in similar ways today. And is there a place for beauty and impracticality in honoring God today, rather than just thinking, what is it that we can do with the most practical use of our money? And I'm sure I could critique everything about even the most simplest of buildings. Why don't we just worship outside? We could save all this money from having a building. And we're not told to have a building after all. We can worship outside wherever we want. And so this is just an unnecessary expense. We could take this critique to anyone. And so I want us to be very careful and humble whenever people try to honor God through beauty. And they aren't doing it selfishly. Cathedrals are built for everyone to enjoy and to honor Jesus, and they all are built with a practical and symbolic purpose in mind that we could learn to appreciate. And while I'm not here to just defend Catholicism or cathedrals in general, I do want us to be more careful as we go about our days of how we see other people honoring God, and how we maybe can honor God through expressions of beauty that are not necessarily practical that we can see, but ones that are true signs of love and devotion to Him.